Alright, today is probably the last day of our work on the Star Wars theme project. We'll add a Star Wars Episode 4 splash screen and then post this page to Google Sites. First of all, we need to add an HTML audio tag to our table of controls. So in our code, let's go to our HTML code, and in the table, we're going to add a new row. This row is going to contain one column, and this column is going to contain an audio tag. And this audio tag will allow us to play audio on our HTML page. And this is what it looks like. Right now, we can't play anything because we haven't linked any files to be the source of the audio. And now note that in this case, we actually merged two columns using this colspan2 attribute. So if we don't have this colspan2 attribute, this audio tag is going to take up this column, and so this column is going to stretch to fit this audio tag, and the rest of the controls will be sticking out like so. But if we add colspan equals 2, then this audio tag will span two columns and everything will fit nicely. Now, in order to play music, we need to specify a link to the MP3 file of the song. I found a Star Wars theme music MP3 file and placed it in my Google Drive in here. Now, if we try to get a link to this file from Google Drive, like so, it will work fine in a browser. So here, it works fine in here, but if we copy the same link into the source of our audio, then if we press play, nothing will happen. And if we go into the console, it actually says that the link that we specified is actually not an MP3 file, it's an HTML file. And the reason for that is this link is not a direct link to a file. It is a link to the interface that Google Drive offers to access the file. Now there's a trick how to get a direct link to your files located in Google Drive. We need to change this link by replacing this file ND with just UC $ID equals, and then remove everything after the last slash, including the slash itself. And now, once we open this link, you'll see that the page was changed, and there aren't any Google controls anymore. And we can see a standard interface offered by browser to play and download MP3 files. UC in the URL probably stands for user content. Now, if we modify the link in the same way in the src attribute, it should work. So let's paste it here. And now, if we refresh the page, we can actually play the melody. Now, in the same way that we change the link to the audio file, we can change a link to the Death Star image. It is a good practice because at some point this image can be removed or renamed and our page won't be able to load it. So here I also save the Death Star image in here, and let's copy its link. Now, if we open it in a new tab, this is the Google's interface for opening the image. But now, if we type UC question mark ID equals and remove everything after the last slash, including the slash itself, we will get a direct link to the image of the Death Star. Now, let's replace the link in our file, like so. And now, when we refresh the page and try to add a Death Star, you can see that it works fine. Now, we could do the same thing for our Yoda thumbnail and the top left corner over here. But you may notice that the Yoda image is actually 2 megabytes in size. And so, but we use it as an icon, which is a square of 16 by 16 pixels only. Now, if the image resolution is greater, it will be compressed by the browser. But loading such big images and compressing, it takes time. But there's a way to make Google help us. Instead of writing UC, and here we can write thumbnail, and then question mark ID equals this, and then we erase everything after the last slash. And now we get an image that was compressed by Google, and it will be much faster for the browser to download it and finalize compression to the size of the icon. Now we can replace our link here with this new link. So thumbnail question mark ID equals, and then we remove all of this. And now, if we refresh the page, we should see our Yoda icon in here. Now, as long as we have audio control, we can continue with our splash screen. You may notice that we handle free events in our code. We handle the stop event for the audio, play, and pause. Now, actually, we have event handlers written for all of these free events. And actually, in these event handlers, you don't need to specify a function. You can just write any JavaScript code and it'll work. So here, when we stop the song, we set the value of the variable, and then we print end it to the console. Similarly, in both of these, we change the value of this variable to something else, and then we log a message corresponding to the action in the console. Now, let's see how this works. So let's refresh our page. Now, when we play the melody, we should see playing written in the console. Now, when we pause it, we trigger the pause event handler. And now, if we end the melody, we should get the ended event handler. So here the melody reached the end, and we triggered the ended event handler, or the stop event handler. Now, usually we have states of control like on and off, like appearance of a Death Star or enabling of fireworks that we did on the first lesson. In this case, it is better to associate this control with a Boolean variable that also has 2 states, true and false. In the case when we have more than 2 states, we can create a variable and use integer values for the states. Now we'll add the declaration of this variable and some other code that we need to create the splash screen scenario. So, and here, after this moving interval, let's add some new variables and functions. So here, the text variable is an array of strings, and this represents the text that we're going to display on the screen. Now, the reason this is an array of strings instead of just one big long string is because we draw these strings individually, and each string will have its own individual height to have sort of like a 3D effect. Now in here, we have a play status variable, and it's going to be 0 by default. And so we have 3 states for it. 0 is not playing or ended, 1 is playing, and 2 is paused. Now here we define a variable called z, and we set it to 60, and this variable is just the position of the text on the z-axis. So in three-dimensional space, we have 3 axes. We have a y-axis, which is the vertical distance, the x-axis, which is the horizontal distance, and in 3D space, we have a z-axis, which is to and from the viewer. However, in HTML, we only have x and y axis because we're drawing on a 2D screen. However, we will simulate this the z distance, and here we set the initial z distance of the text. And here we have a constant called spacing, and spacing we set it to 3, and this is just the space between each individual line of text. And here we have a function called getTextYScale, and we pass in 3 parameters: the size, the y coordinate, and the z coordinate. And this this line calculates the size of the text on the screen based on the z coordinate and the y coordinate and the size of the text. And then here we divide this new size by the previous size, and this gives us the scale of the text. And now we'll add a splash screen scenario. So after our loop where we draw the stars, in here we'll add this if-else block. So in here, if play status is greater than 0, so it's 1 or 2, so it's either playing or it's paused, then we draw the stars. If not, so it's ended, we just reset the z coordinate to its initial value, which is 60. Now in here, if the audio is playing, so play status is 1, then we increment the z coordinate, which makes the text move away from us and into space. And now in here, this for loop draws the text, draws all the lines of text. Here we loop through all the strings and the text array. And here we check if the z-coordinate of an individual line of text is greater than 60. So if it's greater than 60, that means it's on the screen and we want to render it, or it's almost on the screen. But if not, we don't want to render it because otherwise we'll have weird looking visual glitches. And so in here, this code draws an individual line of text, and in Canvas, we don't actually have built-in properties in order to actually scale the text itself. So what we do here is we actually stretch the canvas, and then we draw the text, and the text is normal size. Then when we compress the canvas back to its original size, then the text compresses to the size that we need. So here, first thing we do is we save the current state of the canvas. Now here, what we do is we set the fill style to a gold color. Then we set the font to bold Arial, and then the size of the font depends on the distance, on the text's distance from us. Then the text is aligned to the center. And here, we scale the entire canvas. This first value is the X scale, and we set it to 1 because we don't want it to either stretch or compress. And here, we call the getTextYScale function to stretch the canvas appropriately. And then in here, we actually draw the text. We draw the current line of text in the middle horizontally, and the vertical coordinate takes into account the stretched state of the canvas, as well as the position of the text on the screen. And now in here, finally, we restore the previous size of the canvas, or the previous state of the canvas, and our text gets compressed appropriately. Now, if we save and refresh our screen or our page, let's start the melody and we'll see what happens. Oh wow. And so this works. Now the thing is, this is interesting. Maybe Hyperdrive was on. That is interesting. So, what was supposed to happen is the text wasn't supposed to erase properly, because we actually don't refresh the entire canvas when we draw the text. but for some reason this works. Anyway, we are going to add two conditions here either way. So in here, when the hyperdrive value is greater than 0, so when we have hyperdrive on, then we refresh the entire canvas when we draw the text. And so we want the same thing to happen when we are displaying the text. We want the entire canvas to refresh. So here we add this condition. So if hyperdrive is greater than 0 or play status is greater than 0, so it's either playing or paused, then we refresh the canvas. And in here, similarly, we want our previous logic to work. Only if the hyperdrive is turned off and we are not displaying the text. And now this should work. This should work just fine. Now we finally finished this project, and let's post it to Google Sites. You may remember that we will need to copy everything inside the body tag and paste to the embed window on Google Sites. If we do that in this project, there's an important thing that won't be included, and that's the on key down event handler attached to the body. And without it, we won't be able to control the spaceship using arrow keys on the keyboard. Now, let's delete it and see what happens. So if we refresh our page, I'm right now pressing the arrow keys to turn the spaceship, but I cannot because we delete the event handler. Now, in order to solve this problem, we can attach this event handler in JavaScript. And we can attach it to the body or document objects, which in fact work in the same way. So in here, we'll write document dot on key down event. We'll set it to this function, and we don't need the name anymore. And actually, you may remember that this way of writing event handlers is similar to what we did in Microbit. Now, when we refresh the page, I'm now able to turn the spaceship using the arrow keys. Now, let's post this page in Google Sites. So, in here, let's create a new site. Let's call it Star Wars theme. Let's delete the header, and then in the themes, and let's select the vision theme, and let's just make it like a darker theme. And now in here, we'll embed a new item, and here we'll embed everything that's inside of our body tag, like so. And here is what our page looks like. Now, let's stretch this a bit like this. Let's change the background color to something darker. Now, let's make it a bit like this. Now, let's add a logo to the site, and we'll just use our Yoda logo. This here. And let's set our icon to this Yoda picture. There we go. Now let's preview to see what the page looks like. And here we go. And all the features are still available. We can increase the number of stars, the speed, and we can turn using arrow keys as well. As you notice, when I move the slider all the way to the right, it triggered the event handler and it deleted the text. And also, if the text is moving, then we can pause it to make it stop moving. Anyway, the page looks fine the way it is. So now let's publish it. And to publish it, simply click Publish. And here we type the web address. Let's call it Star Wars theme, like so. Oh, it's already taken. Let's call it Star Wars theme lesson 6. All right. Here we go. Now we published it, and now we can view the published site. So, oops. Let's click this link. That should bring us to our published site. Now, if we pause, look at this. The text will stop moving. And if we play again, it will continue moving. And if we slide it all the way to the end, then it will stop. Anyway, at this point, I'd like to finish the Star Wars project and this series of lessons. I've demonstrated a number of JavaScript, HTML features, as well as solving certain problems. You have several options. You can start applying these skills to your school projects, or try to learn more from other courses and tutorials. Some good resources that I often use myself is W3 Schools, as well as MDN WebDocs. This website here. So W3 Schools is good for when you want to learn a new programming language or concept, because they have a lot of different tutorials for programming languages and concepts. And also, a really good feature of W3 Schools is once you learn a concept, you can click the Try It Yourself button, and then you can mess around with the code and see what happens. like so. Now for MDN web docs, they have some really good documentation on various features that are available for HTML and JavaScript. And this is a list of all the different types of features that they support. And so let's say we want to make our spaceship controllable with a PlayStation or Xbox controller. Then we can click here, and here you can see all the different functions you can use, and even tutorials on how to use this functionality. Are there any questions? Yes, Alice?
Can you move like the text faster?
The text faster?
Yeah.
Yeah, to do that, we can just increase this value. So let's make the text move 10 times faster. Let's set it to 0.3 instead of 0.03. Now, when we refresh the page, let's render our text. As you can see, it moves a lot faster now. And then once it gets far enough, the text will actually be too small to render, and it'll actually not be visible anymore. So yeah, it is slowly disappearing now. And now it's invisible. Are there any other questions?
No, thank you so much. I learned a lot in this course. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hopefully you all had fun and learned something useful. Thank you for listening.